Hello, Electrical Engineering 487 students. We've reached the end of the semester almost, and I want to compliment all of you for your good work in keeping up with the reading discussion and assignments and so forth. I will just have one more request for you to do one more reading discussion here before we wrap up the course. This has been an extraordinary semester, to say the least. It was only, a couple months ago that we were all assuming we would be in a position of having a regular semester after spring break, and it looked like everything was going to be pretty normal. And as you know, we've sort of discovered a new adventure here with all of our requirements to do everything online, and for all of you being located at your home places and not having a great opportunity for certainly face-to-face interaction. But I think you've done a good job with that, and I appreciate it. I want to wish all of you good luck. I know many of you are about to graduate here, and you get on with other things in your life, and it'd be good to maybe take a moment and write down a few of your thoughts right now so you can remember in years to come what an interesting and jarring kind of situation that we've had. So in our course, usually we've been looking at examples of ethics of things that happened some years ago, and that's pretty common in an ethics class because we want to get a little perspective and have a sense that we can kind of see the whole picture and not try to write the history as the events are actually unfolding. But I think given the circumstances with the COVID-19 and all of the things that are going on in our country and around the world, it makes sense that we actually are going to do at least a little discussion of that, and that's what I'd like you to look at this week. So when there's a pandemic like we're having right now, one of the situations that happens is that the public health officials, the people in our government and the government of other countries, are suddenly faced with this choice about how to respond. And it's very common with a communicable disease that people can spread to others unintentionally just by going about their business, that the public health officials are going to need to do something to try to curtail the spread of that disease. And there are quite a range of things that can be done. If it's a disease that is just discovered and just starting to spread, one of the approaches that's most commonly used in public health is to do what's called contact tracing. And what this means is to identify somebody as quickly as possible who becomes ill with whatever the disease is, and figure out who that person has been in contact with recently. People they might have worked with, or in their family, or been in an office with, something like that. And then the idea is to identify all those people and then have those people quarantined so that if they have become ill and don't know it yet, they are not going to spread the disease while you wait for the incubation period to get over. So that can be very effective if the disease is passed from person to person, and if people aren't in contact who have the disease, they won't get sick. Now, of course, what can happen, and is what seems to have happened in the United States with the virus causing COVID-19, is that it got out of hand, and so many people were sick so quickly, especially in more densely populated areas, it just was not practically feasible when there's exponential growth to try to track down any contact information about anybody who becomes sick. At this point, it looks like what we may be able to do in some areas is have the number of infected people down so low that it is feasible to do contact tracing again. So the question I have for you, from a technological standpoint, we certainly know it's possible to track where people are if they're carrying a smartphone or some kind of network-attached device. And we've had some concern about privacy associated with that kind of information. But in the case of public health, the question might be, should we be able to have the public health officials, for instance, track down everybody who was in, let's say, a coffee shop between certain hours on a certain day when they know that a sick individual happened to have been in line there. So, they might be able to track this information on who was in that vicinity and contact all those people and ask them to self-quarantine because they might have been in contact with the sick person. So technologically, we can certainly do that. The laws in Montana and many states allow public health officials to do almost anything that is necessary to contain sick people if there are communicable diseases. And so the question for you is, what do you think of this? Is this okay to have your whereabouts determined by where your cell phone was and then have the public health officials contact you and ask you or perhaps tell you that you have to quarantine? That could be a benefit to everybody else who wasn't in contact, but on the other hand, it's sort of invading your privacy to some extent to have the government or public health people in general knowing your whereabouts. Would you work on products like that would enable that kind of tracking? On the one hand, that could shorten the duration of the pandemic by quickly identifying people who potentially were ill while everyone else goes about their business. On the other hand, that's putting a lot of pressure on the people who are identified to do the right thing and perhaps violating their sense of privacy that somebody is tracking where they're going and trying to restrict their movements based on that. Okay, so again, this will sort of wrap up the course, and I appreciate, again, your work this semester and all of these things. I wish you very good luck out in your career, and I hope that the learning in this course, although it's not intended that we always figure out what's exactly right and what's exactly wrong, what I hope is that you will be aware when a question comes up or a circumstance comes up that requires an ethical decision and an ethical choice, not something that's based on a mathematical formula or a right and wrong decision on an exam or something like that. All right, good luck to all of you, and again, thanks for your work. I look forward to reading your responses this week.